Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grand Cruz Astrology. My name is Clayton Cruz. Today, we're going to talk about the month of May. Um, this video is being shot on May 4th and May 3rd. And we have an eclipse here coming up on May 5th, and that's going to kind of kick things off because I've talked a little bit about this eclipse coming up in other videos. But I've kind of talked about it kind of in a vacuum, not totally, but I haven't really put the rest of the month into perspective so that we can get kind of well-rounded understanding of what's happening here. And so I'm going to just start with that. So with this eclipse here, as you can see in the chart, you have whenever we have a lunar eclipse is what we're going to have on May 5th. It's a full moon, and when you have a full moon, you have the sun and the moon opposite each other in the sky, in astrological terms. So as you can see here, the moon at the bottom of the chart in Scorpio. This eclipse is going to take place right at 14 degrees 58 minutes. So technically, with this chart, it's a little bit before the eclipse, but it serves the purpose of what we're trying to see here. So 14, it'll be at 14:58. The moon will be down here in Scorpio. The sun will be up here in the sign of Taurus. And so, just briefly here, when you have the moon cycle, with the new moon, we had a new moon eclipse, which happened to be at 29 degrees of Aries. Now, normally when we have a new moon, it's something new is born, something it's pure potentiality. It's unformed. It's no more than a thought, right? It's an inkling. It's a possibility. And we're pertaining to lunar cycles, which are the fastest cycles that we have in astrology. We get to see month to month, after 2 weeks of that new moon, what comes into form, or like what is in full expression, like what happened to that idea. Is it being brought forth in any way? Has it anything come to light with it, right? That's what the full moon represents. And it kind of it can be a point of tension because you have the sun and moon in opposition. It's part of the lunar phase. You have that first quarter moon, which kind of represents the first bit of challenge, the opposition, which kind of represents a full coming into expression and a kind of tension, if you will, this back and forth, and a need to come bring into compromise that which is come into form in order to go forward. And so anyway, we're coming into a full moon, a sun moon opposition, full moon in the sign of Scorpio with a south node eclipse coming to that full moon in Scorpio. And so, what does that mean? Well, the eclipse that we had at 29 degrees Aries was a north node eclipse. Again, solar eclipses, solar north node eclipses, all about new beginnings, all about starting something new, all about energy coming in. It's a power surge, especially in Aries, right? Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. There's a lot of energy around. There's a lot of people had ideas. A lot of people had enthusiasm, excitement that Jupiter was right there. There was a lot of buzz, right? But it was at 29 degrees Aries, so there was some kind of finality here, which I'm not sure that we've really come to terms with and seen yet fully. And I do think this eclipse here with the moon may bring some things into focus as far as what is maybe being left behind, or what is going to have to be let go of on a personal level. Now, there's so much happening with this solar eclipse that happened 2 weeks ago, and with Jupiter going to be going over that point of 29 degrees here in mid-May. I think there's still going to be a lot of activity, and there's still going to be a lot of enthusiasm. There is still going to be an overall sense of optimism. I do believe, but there is something here on a personal level that is, we may be dealing with. And of course, this is all going to depend on where it fits into your chart. But, in a general sense, Scorpio, right? South node eclipse on the moon. Lunar eclipses are a little more personal, a little more emotional. When talking about Scorpio, we could be talking about some very deep-seated emotion, something that is maybe something that we've been holding on to. Fixed sign Scorpio, it's water. Something that maybe is very deep. Maybe something that we hold to very closely. Maybe a fear. Maybe a fear. Maybe a trepidation. Something here with this eclipse. There's some kind of release. Now, in and of itself, it can be this kind of eclipse can be, just a time to, take time to yourself and maybe let yourself feel your feelings. And if there is grief, let it out. If there is something that you're holding, let it go, and just really look at it and get very clear on it, and let yourself process that, and do whatever self care is necessary. That would be the suggestion for a south node lunar eclipse in Scorpio in and of itself by itself. But we do have Uranus in the equation. It is going to be at 18 degrees of Scorpio of 18 degrees of Taurus in direct opposition within 4 degrees. So this is bringing a wild card into the equation. This is bringing something sudden, something perhaps unexpected, and this could be around not only during the eclipse, but maybe the next day or so, because the moon is going to actually hit full opposition after the eclipse, directly. So, there's some kind of wild card here when we're talking about Uranian energy. I don't really try to pin down what that could be. Putting my financial hat on here for a minute, I have, Taurus is the sign of personal finances. It rules banking and things like that. And there has been a lot going on with bank closures and failures, tightening of credit, and a lot of stuff happening in the financial system that will eventually trickle down in some way. And we've seen a lot of this Uranian energy get coming into this full moon, a lot of this Uranian energy get triggered. And I do think there could be more fallout over here in the next couple of days. Um, and that's just, kind of a worldly sense of what could be happening to us on a personal level as far as our relationship to um, maybe livelihood, or maybe safety, or maybe what, we feel we need, what our needs are, what our values are, right? This could be material, but it could also be connection to our values, and who do we feel like shares that, and what kind of community we have with that, and what kind of safety we have within that regard. With the moon here, it is really, the moon has a lot to do with security needs, safety needs, things like that. When we have Taurus involved, this can get into finances and possessions and things like that. So there could be some things coming up around this. However, I do think as the weeks go on, again, we have that Jupiter coming to 29 degrees of Aries in the middle of the month. And I do think that once we get past the eclipse into second week of May, I see Jupiter bringing some enthusiasm, bringing some good energy, bringing more buzz around the previous eclipse. And so, though with this eclipse that we have on May 5th, there may be some shock and awe, there may be some grief, there may be some things that really hit us out of nowhere suddenly, maybe on an emotional level. I do see come the second week of May, there's maybe some things that happening in the world, or maybe some things that are happening in the light of day, that are maybe more external, that may brighten our spirits a little bit. Um, you know, again with that North Node eclipse point, again, eclipses, and I'll just say this quickly that the eclipses when they whenever we have an eclipse, it leaves sort of an imprint in the sky for about 6 months. If it's a North Node eclipse, it leaves a North Node imprint, and whenever we have planets transiting over that point, it can create like a power surge. A South Node eclipse, which we're going to have the lunar eclipse at 14 degrees of Scorpio, that leaves an imprint in the sky for 6 months. And we have planets, over those points, it can create kind of a power outage. Okay. And, it's kind of a rule of thumb for eclipses that you have the eclipses themselves, but when those degrees are aspected by other planets throughout the year, they create consequence. Now, I typically only look at the conjunctions and oppositions, sometimes squares. The only thing I'm seeing in May of much consequence here is that second week of May when we're going to have Jupiter going over Aries. And then we're looking at the last day of May, we're going to have Mercury going over the lunar point of 14 degrees where that lunar eclipse was. So these eclipses are going to be activated. They're going to be the energy is going to be with us, and it kind of feels to me like we're dealing with enthusiasm, newness, and excitement, while at the same time some things that are could potentially be strikingly uncomfortable, and could very well cause some grief on some level, right? Perhaps some emotional level. It could be that with all the buzz that's happening, with the change that's happening, with the ideas that are floating around, with the energies that are coming in with this Jupiterian power surge, there could be some emotional stuff that we're being triggered by that maybe we just may not be ready for. It may just be a little too much, right? I mean, with this eclipse that we had in 29 degrees Aries, I heard a lot of people talking about how they were just had so many downloads of ideas, excitement, creativity, and possibility. But at the same time, it was feeling a lot of people were feeling overwhelmed, like it was just too much. Like they didn't know necessarily what to make of it all, what to do with it all. For a lot of people, it was exhausting. Okay, so this is kind of what we're dealing with right now, and there can be some. With this lunar eclipse, there can just be some taking note of that, taking inventory of everything that's happening, and just letting ourselves take a moment to feel what we're feeling. But with your Uranus there, you know, maybe expect the unexpected on an emotional level. Maybe surprised at your own reactions, your own feelings, and your own deep-seated dispositions towards certain things that are happening. So, it's a season for that, and so with Uranian energy, with the moon, just ride the wave, right, and let yourself let yourself surf through this time as best you can. So, again, as we get toward one thing I do like about this eclipse, though, it does have a trine from Saturn. It does have a trine from Mars. Now they're both kind of loose trines, right? Saturn's trine, it's about 9 degrees away, and Mars's trine, it's 7. It'll be about 7, 8 degrees at the time. So I mean, these are loose trines, but they're there, and then by sign they're there. They're supportive energies, and we have what the astrologers call the greater and the lesser malefic, Mars and Saturn, providing in their way a little bit of support, right? That's good. That's good. Because Uranus is already unpredictable enough, but I think with the trine from the malefics of Saturn and Mars, it fortifies things a little bit. It's you may fall, but you may fall and you may fall hard, but you're gonna fall like you're fall into, I don't know, fall on a bed of cushions or something. I mean, it's a little more gentle. Even if it is Mars and Saturn, there's some support. Looks like there's some guardrails. How off the rails we can go here. So I do like that. Um, yeah, and so you know the the Mercury energy at the end of the month, it's going to be in decent aspect to Venus. That's not going to save the day or anything like that, but it's not going to hurt to have Venus in good aspect by sign. Mars is not going to be in the picture in relation to Mercury at that time. Um, Saturn Saturn, nah, will have a loose trine, but it'll kind of be waning. Um, and Mercury is going to be getting closer to Uranus. And once we get into June, I do think there is going to be some very fast movement, some sudden changes, and some things are going to be happening. But by then, I think a lot of the eclipse energy and a lot of the um, personal, emotional drainage or release that needs to happen, that if we're in tune should happen, will be, I think that will be spent. Okay. And we'll be moving into kind of a new phase with this, but it does look like there are some things in motion. Once Mercury gets going forward, see, Mercury is going to go direct here right at the middle of the month, and it's going to be sextile to Saturn in Pisces. I really like that because Mercury's been going retrograde during this process of the eclipses. There are things that are not they're being rewired right now that are not necessarily clear. We don't have all the information. There's a lot of ideas, a lot of hope and speculation, and maybe a lot of talk, but there's there's not a lot of clarity going forward. There's not a lot of things that, not a lot of contracts we can necessarily trust right now. But once we get to the middle of the month and Mercury stations direct in a sextile to Saturn. Now, Mercury and Saturn, these two planets are friends. Okay, they do well together. Typically, when a planet is touching Saturn, unless it's maybe in a trine. Other than that, I it's typically not the best energy because Saturn can play opposite just about any planet that we have, right? But with Mercury, Saturn and Mercury, they Mercury can knows how to work with Saturn. So Mercury in a nice sextile to Saturn when it goes direct is really signifying an opportunity to build on whatever this newness is, whatever's coming in, whatever the eclipses have ended, and whatever realizations have been brought forth, and whatever enthusiasm or excitement may have been generated from whatever maybe chapters were closing or what is seen to be ending. And come middle of the month, middle of May, it looks like we're going to have the opportunity, buzzword opportunity. We're talking about a sextile between Mercury and Saturn. There's going to be an opportunity to build on a solid foundation. Now, that Saturn in Pisces making a sextile to Mercury in Taurus. I mean, I kind of see that as building something that you feel drawn to by spirit. That's the best way I can say it, or drawn like something that's a higher calling, right? We're talking about Pisces energy here with Saturn, right? So, building something tangible. Saturn's all about tangible. Making a nice sextile over to the sign of Taurus, which is also all about tangible, with Mercury right there, which is about perception, the mind, maybe working with the hands, or maybe artisanship, or something that's very practical and real, physical, tangible. This looks like, maybe laying a foundation, right? Laying a foundation. Something is solid, something is sturdy, something to be built upon, right? Looks really good for starting in the middle of May to get that going. Now, we are going to have that again, that Mercury at the very end of the month, last day of the month, it is going to go over that eclipse point again. But it's already gone over the eclipse point once before the eclipse, right? It's stationed retrograde, right? It's stationed retrograde. We stationed retrograde at 15 degrees of Taurus. That was right around, let's see, April 21st, right around the time we had that first eclipse. And it's stationed retrograde, like right at the degree of the second eclipse. So this isn't the first time that Mercury's gone over this point. So I kind of, I don't really see it as whatever this is something new and something to be weary of. I think whatever's coming there at the end of May, though there may be some kind of release or something that has to be maybe cut or let go of or cut loose of or some kind of reckoning of some kind. This isn't something I think is necessarily going to sneak up on us. I think it's something that we are going to be familiar with if we are paying attention. We have our eyes open. By then, it should be clear. Now, once we get into June, we are going to have Mercury hit Uranus. That's going to be right around June 4th, 5th. And so at that time, energy is going to be moving really fast, and we're off to the races in a whole new chapter. Okay. And, I'll talk more about that as we get closer, make another video or something. But, just I just kind of want to put this eclipse in perspective. These both of these eclipses that we've had, they're working together. They're turning things over. They're creating change. It's like a lot of things that are happening in the world. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of good things happening because Jupiter is involved in this, and Jupiter is going to be going into the sign of Taurus right around the time that Mercury goes direct too. So another indicator for starting to build solid foundations, having the enthusiasm, having the energy and the insight, right? Because when Jupiter goes into Taurus, it's also going to be making good aspect to Saturn, and we're gonna have opportunity to really do something really concrete with the enthusiasm and the optimism that Jupiter provides, right? It's not just going to be hot air, even though the Jupiter is, as a planet, it's a big hot air balloon, right? But this time with it being a nice aspect to Saturn here toward the end of the month, and Mercury going direct, making nice aspect to Saturn as well. I think we have an opportunity to really start something, and so what I would say with this, like just to kind of sum it up, this rambling here is that in the first couple of weeks of May, there's a lot of turnover. We could have a lot of ideas, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy, a lot of kind of a continuation of what happened in the previous month. There could be things happening in the world, things could be ending, there could be some drama out there. There's some headlines out there for sure. And so that could be grabbing our attention. But I do think once we get into the middle of the month, that's when we're going to have time. Well, that's when we're going to have an opportunity to really tune in and take inventory and get clear on what we can do going forward and how we can use the new realities that are very quickly coming into our lives, into our sphere, and make good with that. So I'll kind of leave it there. Um, yeah, this is definitely not a boring time of the year. I think this is one of the times of the year. This last few weeks and the next couple of weeks. This is kind of I haven't looked at everything in complete detail yet, but I'm comfortable saying this is at least one of the most intense times of the year. A lot of turnover, a lot of change, and so this is the time to be awake and the time to be active and involved. Take time to take care of yourself when you need to. This is a lunar eclipse, but don't be down and out too long. There's too much happening, and by the middle of May, we're gonna want to take advantage of you know this new energy that's coming in, and really tune in and figure it out, what it is that we want, what we're inspired by, and what it is that we want to build. Okay, that's what I got. Hope this was helpful, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.